Hey everyone, this is Reddit 9 to 5, and I am bringing you a story from ProRevenge. The first title is called I Secretly Trained My Roommate to Not Respond to His Morning Alarms by Butterfly Chunks. Reposted from a post I made in Am I the Butthole? I was in college, a senior. My roommate was a sophomore, but it was his first time living in the dorm. He'd been a pretty lousy roommate, constantly left the room a mess, left his stuff on my side of the room and on my bed, stole my alcohol, used my stuff without permission, and never cleaned up my dishes after he used them, and a bunch of other stuff. I confronted him about all these issues on several occasions and got the RA involved with the alcohol stealing issue because at the time he was under 21. Things still continued anyways. He asked me once if it was okay for his girl to spend the night, which I said no. We were in the middle of a pandemic, plus that's especially weird if I was there. I also had to wake up every day at 8 for work, which he knew, and he would stay up until 2 a.m. playing video games some nights. Not to mention, he would set like 10 alarms in the morning with a bunch of different alarm tones. I hit a breaking point and decided to do something cruel. Every morning when I woke up, I'd observe his alarm pattern and how he'd respond. He had several alarms that he'd ignore, all with the same sound. He had a couple half-hour alarms that had a unique sound, also ignored, and then a final alarm that has its own sound too. All of them were default iPhone sounds. So his brain has been trained to this alarm pattern for a while, I'd assumed. So I started step one of my punishment. Set up a sequence of alarms on my phone identical to his sequence, but an hour early. He responded to my alarms the exact same way he responded to his own. I kept this up for a week, and his brain was eventually retrained to sleep through double the amount of alarms as before. Then phase 2 kicked in. Random inconsistencies in my alarm pattern. Some days I'd play all the alarms, while other days I'd only play one that his brain was trained to ignore. That way, his brain expects to sleep through like 20 alarms and only ever hears 11. He slept through his alarm at least 4 times in 2 weeks. Eventually, he finally changed his alarm pattern so that he'd only have one alarm and he no longer had the energy to stay up until 2 a.m. TLDR, I psychologically tortured my roommate by throwing off how his brain responds to his alarm clock because he was stealing booze and was a sucky roommate. I've heard plenty of stories about people getting back at sucky roommates, but I don't think I have ever seen this level of psychological warfare. OP, I'll give you props for a well executed revenge, but I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't be a bit scared to have you as a roommate. On to the second story. My wife cheated and lost by ThatBend1601. Gonna preface this by stating that this happened 3 years ago. This isn't a throwaway account, but fake names will be used. Let's start with the frame of the story. I, 27-year-old male, grew up like most guys under the assumption that the one was out there. That if you play your cards right, your soulmate will magically appear and you'll ride off into the sunset. When I was 19, I met a woman. Let's call her Bree. I met Bree through mutual friends while I was in the army. Bree was cute, quirky, seemed like an overall good girl. Her friend, let's call her Sam, thought it would be a great idea to get us together as a couple. Not sure what her reasons were, but I was into her and she was into me. Bree was up for a few days visiting Sam, and I had just gotten back from leave on my home state, so the meeting was inevitable. We all had lunch. Myself, Bree, Sam, and Sam's husband, let's call him Jim. This meetup was nothing spectacular, but after Bree had flown home, she messaged me on Facebook and we hit it off. After 3 weeks of talking to Bree, she hit me with a very strange question. If I was pregnant, what would you do? Now, before I got my answer, let's do some math here. She was in her party years and slept around frequently. I found that out way later in the relationship. She had a boyfriend a month before meeting me. I was adopted, so accepting a kid as my own seemed like a no-brainer. My answer was what seemed like the right thing. I will love that child as if it were my own. Well, turns out she was showing a lot of signs of pregnancy. A week later, she took the tests and it was positive. I stood by my word. I'll take care of this kid. There was a 3-month gap between this revelation and when she decided to fly out to me. During this gap, she was very flaky, trying to see if she could get who she thought was the dad to commit and help her take care of the kid. He never budged. She chose me instead. Yes, I understand now why staying with her was a bad idea. I was dumb, in love, and believed she was the one, and that she'd come around eventually. I married her so the army would cover the birth, and the rest should have been history, but we all know it wasn't. Year 2. 2 years in, I noticed something a bit strange. Some guy, we'll call him Ron, was liking every post she put out and commenting on every photo that had the daughter in it. That seems a bit odd. At this point in our marriage, I'd gotten out of the military and was working a job in security. One night while working, my lizard brain connected the dots and the gut feeling followed. Now, I'm not one just to act on just suspicion. I need proof. Given that I was working a nightclub that night, I would be off at 4 in the morning. She'll be asleep. She leaves her laptop on the living room couch downstairs every night before bed. The plan is coming together. I get home, head to the couch, the laptop is there. I open it and take 2 guesses at the password. It's the birth year of our daughter. I go to her Facebook. I look in the messages, and there it is. 6 months of conversation with a guy named Ron. Some of the conversation is flirty. Some of the banter about how useless and less of a man I am. The worst part, though, was the revelation that the guy is who she feels to be the biological father, and she's trying to get him involved. I scroll and scroll until I can't stomach it anymore. I grab the laptop, take it upstairs, and set it on her with the screen shining in her face. As she slowly wakes up, I say, "We're talking about this in the morning," and I walked back downstairs. She normally wakes up at 7, but didn't come down until 9, probably hoping I would be asleep on the couch. She begins saying that it was only friendly talk and not technically cheating. I called bullshit and told her that I see this again, I'm gone. Now I said if, but I knew better. It would be when. This was when I set my plan into motion. I dropped out of college to get a job in my field and made sure everything that was opened up under credit was under her name. I began stating that back where I'm from, it's a better economy and we'd be better off there. It took 2 years of convincing, but it worked. Nothing was under my name, and we were set to go to my hometown in 6 months. We got there in May, and I sent her home to visit the next month. I knew what she would do and who she would do it with. There was a guy we met through Sam the day before, and we left, and I knew immediately that she was interested in him. 3 weeks after going to visit, she started acting strange again, prioritizing other things over me, putting things off, and becoming distant. Now, I spent 2 years setting the dominoes up. I just let her knock them over. I made sure I was jobless, had nothing to my name, and was home where I could fall back on family. I pressured her into admitting that she cheated, and the dominoes tumbled. I cut all funds that were being sent to the account, drained the account to file for divorce. I had nothing, so she couldn't take half. I had no job, so what lifestyle did we have that would require giving her alimony? Everything was in her name, so even though I had financial responsibility over some of these bills, the divorce lasted long enough to destroy her credit. I gave her everything and sacrificed so much to raise her child, but in the end, she lost the most. I am now extremely successful and valued in my career. I'm not interested in marriage, but I have no shortage of women in my life. Life is good. I still have contact with the daughter, and Bree often flirts with me, trying to get me back. I'm the only dad the kid has known, and have no intentions of becoming the ex-dad. Even though getting back with her is emotionally tempting, especially to be with the kid more, I knew better, and I have better options. TLDR, cheaters always get caught and always get what's coming to them. Edit. Due to a large volume of people thinking I intentionally hurt the child to get at the mom, I'll clarify. The kid is supported above and beyond despite no legal requirement to do more than just the minimum. Clothes, shoes, bed, games, toys, hobbies, I pay for all of it. The kid is very much involved in my life, and she is provided for. I drop everything to talk to her, and I get involved in what she loves. I don't get to see her much, but there's very little that she longs for except living with me. The kid is mine regardless of genetics. I made that investment in her life from the start, and I'm sticking to it. I worked very, very hard to keep her isolated from this revenge. She is happy and loves her daddy very much. I don't talk her mom to her, and she has a healthy relationship with both of us. Even though she wishes mommy and daddy were together, she is understanding that that's not going to happen, and I'm working very hard to make sure that the impact of that is softened. Hey OP, I'm sorry you got cheated on. Infidelity is one of the worst things, in my opinion, that you can commit in a relationship, much less a marriage. To be honest, though, I don't really know how you didn't see those red flags coming from a mile away. Also, if you know she cheated and have proof, why stay? It's not like she's suddenly going to be loyal to you now that you caught her. If it were me, the second I had proof would have been the second I got out of there. And on to the third story. Revenge is a dish served very, 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 very cold. By Infinite Respect 4757. In my young 20s, I moved to a new city to try and start my career in life. Money was very tight, but I was confident that I would get things up and running. In my job search, I came across a promising opportunity at a small firm. Instead of offering me the job, the owner said he would like me to come in for 2 days and work. If it was a fit, they would hire me, and if not, they would pay me for the 2 days. Money was so tight at the time that I figured that taking the bus to and from the job was a luxury I could not afford and walked an hour each way to get there. Money was very tight. I did good work both the days and worked very hard, but it was not a fit. The owner then tells me, I know we said we would pay you, but it was just too complicated to set you up for just 2 days. So you'll just have to be happy with the experience you got from us. The way he acted really rubbed me the wrong way. I was mad as I really needed the money. But as I was trying to find a job, I figured it was not in my best interest to make waves, as word may get around that I was difficult. I did, however, decide that someday, some way, I would get my revenge on the owner. I did find a good job that would lead to a great career, but I always kept tabs on the owner, looking for the time and place to get some revenge, and even a few times considered some more juvenile methods. Just short of 20 years passed, and now I was very senior in my chosen profession. But instead of working for a small firm, I was a leader at a very large national company that hired firms. As it turns out, we had a large contract come up, and I was the lead executive on the procurement team in the area the firm operated on. Things have changed a bit over the years, but bidding on those contracts was at the firm's expense at the time back in those early 2000s. However, to safeguard them from wasting too much money, the bidding would be in stages. Well, sure enough, the owner and his firm put in an exploratory bid. They were not perfect for the job, but they could actually do it, so I assisted them in moving to the next stage, and the next stage, and then the final stage. The easiest thing I could have done was shut them down right away and got a bit of revenge, but they were qualified, so I did not do that. There was some risk letting them go through to the end, though. Though I was the lead, it was a team decision, and to be honest, if they had the best proposal despite my thirst for revenge, I would vote for them. The proposals and presentation came in, and luckily, the other firm was a bit better, and we went with them. Normally, the executive lead didn't deliver the bad news in the bid process, but I volunteered to take on the call, and that was my little dose of revenge. It was fun to call the owner, who had no idea we met 20 years ago, to tell him, we were impressed with your proposal, but it was just not the right fit. I know you may be disappointed to not get the contract, but at least you got great exposure to our process. I know I should have used his own words from 20 years ago, but I could not bring myself to do it. The firm must have done about 200 hours of work on their proposal, so I figured that was payback for my 16 hours with 20 years of interest. And that's it for this episode of Pro Revenge. This is Reddit 9 to 5, and if you like this content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps me grow my channel. Also, as a special treat, I just started my own podcast. I have the links down in the description below, so if you want to support me, please feel free to check those out. And I already have all of the episodes that I have currently done so far on the podcast, so you can listen to each one as they go. See you next time.